Welcome back into Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord, Kirk Cousins, the gift that keeps on giving. We have more drama. We know that the Falcons are keeping up. They're going to try to trade him. It seems like there is going to be a market for him, and the reports are starting to heat up with Josina Anderson of CBS Sports, a highly up there insider. Usually she's got pretty
tier two.
Pretty good inside information there. Says she's been getting calls that Kirk Cousins and those trade talks are indeed happening, even mentioning a third-round pick. If Terry Fontenot was able to somehow convince someone to take on Kirk Cousins, the $27.5 million without having to eat too much of it, and gets a third-round pick out of this, I'll apologize. I will officially.
Well, you don't have to worry about that.
Well, I know. That's why I'm saying it. It's the same thing when I say I'm going to eat my shoe. I'm not going to do it because it's not going to happen, right?
I think that everybody should take this report with a grain of salt. I think that it is just the preliminary. Every team that could possibly need a Kirk Cousins is just touching base and being like, hey, let's keep the lines open. Let's keep a fluid dynamic kind of going between us because, the draft doesn't go our way. We could be interested. And the third round pick, she may have misheard. She may have just misunderstood. Because there's literally a 0% chance a team is giving up a third-round pick for Kirk Cousins, even if the Falcons ate some of his salary and left them with $17.5 million of salary to cover. There's just no way. I think I got a bridge to sell you, and obviously she's connected. I'm not, so I can't be too. You're wrong, but. There's just no way because everything tells you from the demand to what other quarterbacks have gone for in their situations that Kirk Cousins isn't the guy to cost a third round pick.
But does it? I mean, listen, if let's say teams are buying into the fact that Kirk Cousins is more of the guy that he was in the first half of the season because of injuries. And we talked about this the other day, Geno Smith, who just
Younger.
but Geno Smith is Geno Smith. Are we expecting, did anybody really think Geno Smith is the guy that's going to lead you to a Super Bowl? I feel like you're in that same kind of category of Kirk Cousins, yet you're not committing as much money. So it's almost a little more advantageous there. And if it happens after the draft, that third round pick's 2026, it's a little bit less. So it's you're
Geno Smith and Kirk Cousins are very similar quarterbacks. Geno Smith is younger. And I think that is all. And, on his side, you're kind of not as boxed in as with Kirk Cousins. I do feel like you're a little boxed in. I know that there's no guaranteed money when it comes to Kirk Cousins' future contract. You can just cut ties with him. And unless it works out, then you've got him under contract for 2 more years after 2025. I just have a hard time believing, anybody is willing to part ways with third-round pick for Kirk Cousins. In fact, I think nobody should be, expecting anything more than a day 3 pick if it comes to fruition at all.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the way I'm just trying to compare it to Geno Smith because I'm thinking, listen, Kirk's going to be less expensive. You're not boxed in. And it's probably going to be an after the draft pick. So a third round pick is really more like a 4th round pick. And it's could I potentially, I'm not saying I'm buying it. I'm just trying to compare it to a situation where I view it as similar. To me, if I'm the GM today, would I rather have 1 year, let's say the Falcons eat $5 million, $22.5 million committed to Kirk Cousins next year, or whatever, the 2 years, $60 million, $65 million committed to Geno Smith? To me, the answer is easy, especially if I'm giving up less draft capital. Now, people around the league may not view it that way, but if I'm looking for a stopgap option, I prefer the guy that doesn't box me
with
in.
The assumption that Kirk is still capable of being what he was weeks 1 through 9. And no team will be able to know that for sure until they agree in principle and then get him in the building for a physical. And so you're doing a lot of guesswork. And, with Geno, it's a known commodity. And that's more valuable in today's NFL because the Raiders knew who their quarterback was well before, the Giants, the Steelers, the Browns, all these other teams. They're still trying to figure all that stuff out. So there's value in that, knowing that your guy's in the building, getting him in the building, having him in OTAs, having him in and around the guys, knowing the system that you're going to be working in. Geno's probably already got the playbook in hand. And those are all the things that Kirk will not be doing because, like you said, the draft is probably the Falcons and his best chance of kind of a team emerging where it's like obvious landing spot because they miss out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, fair, like, let's say, what else makes people operate different is desperation. Like the New York Giants, they miss out on Aaron Rodgers. Those guys are their GM and their head coach. You want to talk about two guys coaching for their jobs? I don't know how they still have jobs, but they're two guys that if they don't go out there and at least show a pulse, there's no way they can return for another season in New York. Let's say they don't love Shedeur Sanders. Cam Ward's taken first overall. Now they're a desperate team where there's not a better option within 100 miles of Kirk Cousins and taking a risk on that. And if it works, maybe you save your job. If it doesn't, or if you don't make a move, you're fired anyways. Yeah. So desperation also plays, a little bit into these things.
Yeah.
And then an injury arises to another team.
And Albert Breer kind of gave a good, checkpoint. The first checkpoint was Sunday, St. Patty's Day weekend, was that $10 million roster bonus. The next one is the draft. Which we just talked about, teams that it's a terrible time to need a quarterback or a young quarterback. So if the Giants, or one of these clubs that needs one that we're all thinking we can trade Kirk Cousins to doesn't come away with one. And it looks like that's going to be the case, at least one of them. And then you take another one away because Aaron Rodgers is going to sign somewhere. Somebody will sign him. So then you've got that. That's when a real trade target will emerge, or a trade landing spot will emerge. And then it's the OTAs, it's the training camp, it's the, somebody tore their Achilles walking, into the locker room. Yeah. So
JJ McCarthy doesn't heal properly from his torn ACL. And he's in training camp. And guess what? Just hypothetically, that situation, right? Like JJ McCarthy coming off significant injury. Let's say he's struggling. Let's say he gets injured. Let's say he suffers a setback. You're now in OTAs or whatever. You need someone that knows that. Who knows that thing better than Kirk Cousins, right? Like that's a guy that can step in and have that seamless transition. So by the Falcons doing this, which I think we both agreed was a good decision, like there's the potential for them to get something out of us. Now, a third-round pick may be far-fetched, but I think the idea is becoming more and more clear that it's going to be very, very possible, if not a guarantee almost, that he will be able to find a trade landing spot. I just think there's too many spots out there for him to land. The compensation to me doesn't matter. Get him out of here.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. I think that's what Falcons fans should focus on. I think the report from Josina Anderson, it was like a pretty girl walking in front of you when you're like, I got a good one right here.
They like to get us excited.
That's not the point. She's crazy. That's not the point. The point is eyes on the prize. Get rid of Kirk Cousins via trade post June 1, and financial freedom is the goal. Chief and most important goal, financial freedom.
Yeah, I mean that's
everything else is gravy,
especially with the way we draft after the first round. That pick could end up being a guy that we've never heard of or never really even see play. Now, it could be the next Jalen Mayfield, even if we get a third round pick, or D'Angelo Malone. So let's just focus on getting him out of town, ridding of that cap, preparing for 2026, doing as well as we can in 2025. And I think as much as we
the ball is rolling though.
Yeah, I really think guarantee. But we're going to talk about Kirk Cousins coming up after the break. Huge news in the Netflix world surrounding the Falcons quarterback.